Rabbi Manis Friedman. Hello. Thank God it's Tuesday. Oh boy. Things are happening. They're escalating, getting scarier, to be honest. And I don't know if it's just an illusion that somebody is trying to have us believe in, or are we actually really on the brink of World War III, because the world is dividing. Some are backing Ukraine, some are backing Russia. It seems like the European Union and NATO are backing Ukraine, and kind of even looks like they're cheering this conflict on, where Belarus, Armenia, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Cuba, Venezuela, Argentina, Mongolia, they're backing Russia. I don't know if Russia has any intent to do anything, but it's like scary now. So many countries. Before it was between people within countries. Now it's between countries. And the question that I have, of course, is our weekly question. Are things getting better or not?
Well, domestically, things are getting better. Right? People are standing up. Enough is enough. And the authorities are backing down. They're playing down all the damage. It's almost like they realize they're going to be exposed, and they want to minimize. It's not that bad. Not so many people died. The exact opposite of what they were telling us for 2 years. It's terrible, terrible. Everybody's dying. Now it's not. It wasn't so terrible. Not everybody died. Some people lived. It's not so bad. So they're backtracking, and
they're backtracking when it comes to everything now. Everything that they've been saying a year ago is the exact opposite. Everything that they were absolutely certain about is so not true. And I don't know how how everybody is going to react to it. I mean, now people are reacting, but still we can't really put a finger on it. You know, are people fully waking up, or are they still hopeful that they can trust somebody? What's going on? What a mess.
Whatever it is, I think the spell has been broken. You know, that magical whatever that they can do no wrong. So this is very good. And I think that internationally also, it's all a lot of noise, and it's just going to prove how confused we are and how dishonest the whole game is. And it's going to end up bringing us closer to truth, closer to peace, and closer to godliness. Because that's the ultimate. If God is not running the world, then we are in big, big trouble. So, will there actually be some military conflict? I hope not. I hope it's just a lot of bluffing and a lot of posturing, and just to show who's weak and who is strong. And that will just force the truth out into the open, so that everybody will see what's what and who's who. That, I think, that's definitely going to happen. Will there be some fighting? I hope not. But it's certainly not World War III. Nobody wants it, nobody cares for it, and nobody's going to gain much from it. So what?
Well, usually any war leads to better economy. So this is the game they've been playing all along. Everything is about wealth. Everything is about power. So I'm just worried that this is part of the game that is still being played by still not completely identified players.
I think there's a difference. When you're fighting just for the money, you don't really fight that hard. Because, it's not worth dying for money. If you're fighting for a principle, for world domination, that's a fight to the finish. So selfishness does not lead to world war. It would take something much more than that. And people are just not interested. It's too dangerous. You've got chemical, you've got weapons of mass destruction. No, nobody needs this. And for money? No. We are not that crazy. So, it is scary. It's scary to think how easily human beings can destroy themselves. And it just points out the miracle of our survival. The survival of the planet. With all of the evil, with all the greediness, with all the foolishness, with all the arrogance, how come we're still here? How come there's still civilization and there's life goes on and people are living and people are doing, and it's a miracle. It is absolutely a miracle. It cannot be attributed to human decency because there isn't enough of that. It's got to be a miracle. It's God's world, and although he gives us freedom of choice, he's not going to let us destroy his planet. That's just not in the cards. So we can make ourselves miserable, and we can do horrible things, but only so far. Then God steps in and says, okay, enough. There'll soon be nothing left to my planet, so we got to stop now.
Rabbi Friedman, everything is so, we are reflecting the Torah. It's such a live, I don't want to call it a book, it's just life. And every year, whatever different happens to us, it still reflects exactly what is happening in the Torah at exactly this time how we are reading the Torah. So if you don't mind, the parallel, I'm blown away because the last portion of the last Parsha was speaking about everything that is happening right now. Amalek is the ultimate evil of Torah, if I'm not mistaken. It is the countering of God. It's there to make certain that God's plan is not going to realize itself. It's not going to come to life. Please correct me anytime I'm wrong because I'm just a beginner. And this is exactly what we're seeing in the world right now, that the evil is willing to go to any length, be suicidal, be willing to kill itself just to make sure that God's plan does not come to life the way it was meant to be. I see that parallel very, very clearly. But of course, I would much rather have your take on everything.
Well, if you want to follow the significance of the Torah reading of the week. So last week we read about the 10 Commandments. God comes down, gives us the commandments, and introduces morality to the world. This week's portion, the details are provided for civil laws, how people get along with each other. It's not about sacrifices, not about the temple. It's not about serving God. It's about being proper. I don't think there's any better word than that, with each other. How do we share our wealth? How do we divide things up equitably? If there's a damage, if there's a loss, what is our responsibility to each other? It's beautiful. It's the fabric of everyday life. And it's telling us, right, you could consider it, this is the beginning, right? Right after the event at Sinai, what do we need to know? We need to know that now that you have heard from God, now make everyday life more livable. Don't go to heaven. Don't get mystical. Don't get religious. Don't become pious and spiritual. Once you hear from God, you make everyday life more decent, more civil, more respectful. It's not otherworldly. But it's also telling us that all of these rather obvious and logical, necessary considerations of civilization, of your neighbor, of people, it seems so obvious and simple. It would never work if we didn't know that it's coming from God. Because when you follow rational, logical goodness, your logic can just as easily mislead you. So if there wasn't some ultimate authority, being civil, being decent, being considerate, it's not optional. It's not if you please. It's God's world, and this is what he needs from his world. That gives morality a backbone. It gives it some compelling power. So God didn't say, if you don't mind, be nice to each other. Not if you don't mind. This has to be. So the laws between man and man are as important to God as the laws between man and him. That's what keeps us really moral. And without that, yeah, we're smart enough to figure out good laws. But why would we bother? And even after we figure them out, why keep them? And if we do keep them, it's only when we're in a good mood. Get into a bad mood, throw them all out. So that is exactly what's happening. Human, the belief in human decency, secular humanism. We don't need God to tell us right from wrong. We're intelligent beings. We're good-hearted. We mean well. We will take care of it. Thank you very much. We don't need a Bible. Yeah, we've been doing this since, I don't know, the 30s. How are we doing?
Not great.
Pretty miserable. So it's not working. It's not working. We are decent people, and we do mean well. But we're also fallible, and we're also weak, and we also have negative tendencies. So what's going to guarantee that the good in us will prevail over the negative in us? We have to have, like, when you have two sides of an argument, how do you resolve it? Bring in a third opinion. That's why you always have to have three judges. Because two judges will get stalemate. One judge, too dangerous, giving one person too much power. So you need three. The third opinion tilts the scale in favor of one or the other. So who is the third opinion? God. The good side in me says, be good. The bad side in me says, who cares? So who's going to win? I find out that God prefers the good side. Okay, so now it's 2 against 1. Case closed. That's how we make moral decisions. Without that third opinion, we just stalemate. So sometimes I'll give in to the good, sometimes I'll give in to the bad, and we're not really resolving anything. We just make ourselves crazy, inconsistent. Kids complain. You said, but you didn't do, or you did, but then you did the opposite. You're a hypocrite. I don't trust you. I don't believe in you. Don't tell me what to do. So the whole thing just falls apart. That's what we can learn from the Parsha.
Rabbi Friedman, about wealth and judges, which was actually last week's Parsha. It was very clear that it says very clearly in the Torah, the judges must have few qualities, such as the leaders must be wealthy, they must be righteous, truthful, and they shouldn't like their wealth. This is an excellent one. So they can give up the wealth. If there's an argument, take it. It's not worth it. That's the way I understood it anyway. But has that ever been throughout history that we actually had such leaders? I'm not even going to speak about what we're having today. Today is the complete opposite. But the wealth aspect is there. It's been there throughout ages, and now it's out of hell, out of out of all boundaries there. So, but in reality, is it ever possible to have someone who is all that but does not like their wealth? And what does it mean not to like your wealth?
Well, if you noticed, what are there, 3 qualifications or 4?
I think actually 4 probably. Righteous, truthful, diplomat, God-fearing. There's more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So he has to be wealthy so that he's not needy for bribes. He has to be God-fearing. He has to be a person who pursues justice, who knows right from wrong. And he has to hate money. But then it says Moshe went and found those people who were God-fearing, who were wealthy, and who had a good sense of justice. It doesn't say they hated money. So the joke is, he couldn't find anybody. He found the other qualities. He didn't find anybody who hated money. What does it mean to hate money? Why should you hate money? Soine betza. People who hate money. Hate is usually accompanied with fear, or fear is usually what creates the hatred. I hate what scares me. I hate what threatens me, right? On the one hand, they have to be wealthy so that they're content with their money. And at the same time, they have to hate money. Why? And what is there to hate? Why should you hate money? So obviously, it's talking about the effects of money. They hate what money does to people. So on the one hand, When two people come and are fighting over money, don't hate the people. Hate the money. Look at what it does to people. They're ready to kill each other over $20. To tear apart a family, tear apart a community over a few dollars. So don't blame the people, blame the money. Money can be toxic. That's number one. And number two, apply it to yourself. Hate what money could do to you. So it's not the money, it's the worship of money, the worship of wealth. If I'm wealthy, then I am a decent, respectable, justified existence. No, money doesn't do anything like that at all. It doesn't justify, it's not even a compliment. The fact that you have money, it doesn't mean anything. Some of the best people in history were very wealthy. Some of the worst people in history were very wealthy. It proves nothing. So don't worship money. Hate what it does to people. And that's absolutely necessary if you're going to be an honest judge. You know, a decent guy who has enough money for himself, who is not vulnerable to bribes because he's quite comfortable and doesn't really need the bribe. When he hears two people fighting over $20, he loses respect for them. What is wrong with you people? Yeah, it's easy for you to say because you have enough money. So in addition to having enough money so that you're not vulnerable to being bribed, you also have to hate money. Otherwise, you're going to hate the people. You say, what is wrong with you? It's only $50. Yeah, it's easy for you to say it's only $50. But you know what money does to people? It makes them crazy. Yeah, they'll fight endlessly for the $50. They'll pay a lawyer $10,000 to get your $50. That's what money does to people. So just because you're comfortable and you need to be in order to be a judge, don't let that bias you against the people who are suffering from a need for money, real or imagined. So you can treat the claimants, or whatever it's called, you can treat them with respect. Because if you lose respect, you can't be a judge.
So, Rabbi Friedman, in almost 6,000 years, we were not able to find a single person out there who hates money.
That's the joke.
Well, that joke keeps on giving.
Yeah. It's still a joke all these years later. Yeah. Yeah. I think today the insanity of it is rather glaring. And because of COVID in the last 2 years, it healed us. This desperate need for money as if it will validate your life. No. We don't feel that anymore. We don't think of it that way anymore. I think we've been cured of that craziness. I mean, the average person today, if you had one wish, would you wish for money? I think most people would say no.
But 2 years ago, that would be true. I think that's what was on everybody's mind and the top of a wish list.
Yep. That's a significant improvement. That's reassuring. There is hope after all.
Rabbi Friedman, what is happening with people all over the world? I mean, people are just getting more and more active and vocal about going against what they believe is wrong. We see it, I mean, if we look in the right places, we see it that people are coming out in masses. They're not afraid of COVID. They're not afraid of being sick. They're not afraid of the police hurting them. They're coming out and their they're voicing out whatever they need to voice out. Right now, it's still against COVID, against freedoms being taken away due to COVID. But realistically, I don't even think that this is what it is all about anymore. I think just people have something they want to get out there. It's because COVID is subsiding and all the governments are saying that they're going to be making, all the regulations against it easier, easing off the regulation, easing off that. But people are still coming out more and more and more and more and coming together. What are they really coming together? What do you think? Why do you think people are out there more and more and more?
Well, partly anyway. I'm not sure, the whole picture, but certainly a part of it is we realize that we have been made fools of. And we want to demonstrate that we're not fools anymore. So it's, you can just privately in your own mind say, oops, that was silly of me to fall for that. But there's a need to make it public. I'm not falling for that anymore. I'm not as stupid as I look. You can fool me for a while, but you're not fooling me anymore. And I need the world to know I'm not fooled anymore, because it's so embarrassing to have been so misled and blind or whatever. Right? So now we want to tell the world, I'm not stupid no more. I'm not going to allow this anymore. So I think, we talked about this for many, many months. What's the tipping point? How far will people allow themselves to be pushed before there's the backlash? Well, there's the backlash. We've reached the tipping point.
Do you think we reached that tipping point in masses, or it still seems like it's less than half that have... Well,
the silent majority is always hard to read. But if there's a significant number of people voicing it, there are at least 5 times that many who feel the same way but won't voice it. Maybe more than 5 times, 10 times.
Rabbi Friedman, what comes after voicing your opinions, saying your distresses out loud? What's the next step?
Well, what I'm hoping is that those who are responsible for all of this will now feel vulnerable. People are calling their bluff, right? People are pointing fingers, and nobody wants to be the brunt of that anger. So the bad guys will start pointing fingers at each other. It wasn't me, it was him. And that will be the end of this terrible corruption. So once the evil is exposed, it's finished. I hope that's what's going. It's starting to happen. Everybody who is responsible is now backing away. No, we didn't do that. No, we never. It wasn't us. It wasn't us. Well, then who was it? So they're going to start pointing fingers at each other because nobody wants to take the blame, and they'll indict each other.
Rabbi Friedman, but what about the people? How will the people go through this? I mean, it's like communism being over in one day. So how does this healing, and this is not just one country, it's the world, it's the humanity. How will humanity deal with it, once it happens, and God willing, it happens as soon as possible?
I think the same way that we're going to deal with the virus. Okay, you had us fooled, you had us scared, you had us confused. No more. We're seeing clearly. This is right. This is wrong. Let's get on. Let's get on with real life, which is wonderful.
But there's still,
we'll come out much better, much smarter.
100%. But there's still people out there who are yelling and cursing at other people to put the mask on, and there are still vaxxers, anti-vaxxers, and it's still kind of going on, and
Well, that's going to provoke the healthy people and the smart people and the good people to get active, to speak up. Every country that had its heyday, that was the superpower of its time, and there's so many, and it just keeps on moving. It's like we've never had the same country be a superpower twice. You only get one shot at it, and that's it. And then you're gone. So the Babylonians, the Romans, the Greeks, the Assyrians, every union, whether it was the Turks or the British, the empires, they all had their moments of fame. They were at the top of the world, and then they're gone. Each one of them represented a fanaticism in something. Because if we want to define the nature of evil versus the nature of holiness, the nature of holiness is very moderate, very reasonable. Things are what they are. For everything there is a season, a time to speak, a time to be silent, a time for love, a time for hate, a time for war, a time for peace. That's holiness. There's no fanaticism. Peace is a wonderful thing in the right time. Then war becomes the right thing. Love is wonderful. It has its time. There's also a time for hate. That's holiness. That's what King Solomon is saying in that chapter. For everything under the sun, there is a season. But in unholiness, there's no such thing. Whatever it is that a nation represents, whatever unholy trait, it's always fanatical. Fanatical means it has no limit. So, for example, Egypt. When Jews were slaves in Egypt, Egypt was the superpower. It was the country that every other country looked to. For grain, by the way, because of Joseph's plan. But even in sciences and in medicine, they were way, way at the top, the cutting edge of its time, right? And we're still trying to figure out how they built those pyramids. So what was the evil of it, and what was the fanaticism? The unholy trait that Egypt represented and embodied was stubbornness. Pharaoh says the Jews can't go. All the water in Egypt turns to blood. I would be a little intimidated.
Каждый вторник в 12:10.
Oh, sorry about that.
But Pharaoh and the people said, no, not letting him go. A second plague. Nah. A third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth. How stubborn can you be? So their trait was stubbornness, like confidence in their own opinion. But it was fanatical. It knew no bounds. Until Pharaoh felt that he is in immediate danger of actually dying, he wouldn't budge an inch. The other fanaticism was the totality of it. You know, even in Russia, in the worst times, some people were allowed to leave just to make it look good. Oh yeah, you're free to go. See, and then you can show the world we're very liberal. We don't oppress people. But Egypt wouldn't do that. It was not even, Moshe, take your family and go. No, you can take nobody. It was just fanatical. One of the traits that we gained by being in Egypt, the Jewish people, what did we gain by being in Egypt for 200 years? We became a stiff-necked people. Where did we learn that? It's not part of being holy. That's the nature of unholiness. The nature of unholiness is passion without limit. Even sexual pleasure. Sexual pleasure is when you have sex. Yeah, that's reasonable. The fanaticism is, it's not just when you're having sex. It's when you're doing something that looks a little bit like sex. Not only that, even just talking about it is pleasurable. No, even just imagining. There's no limit. Anything associated in any way whatsoever is part of that pleasure. That's fanatical. So the nature of unholiness is that it's fanatical.
Rabbi Friedman, I think, speaking of Egypt and fanatical, I think the whole world realized that we've pretty much been enslaved some one way or another. And I think the world is realizing that that's not what living is all about. Unfortunately.
So listen to this. Listen to this amazing thing. The Jews acquired the attribute of stiff-neckedness, but in holy things. What was the result? The result was Egypt became moderate. So when we take the fanaticism of the evil and use it for holiness, holiness becomes intense and the unholy becomes reasonable. We took the stiff-neckedness from the Egyptians, and they've never been that way again since. I think you might say that all the time spent in Russia, how long were Jews in Russia? 1,000 years? 1,500 years? It's a long time. What did we gain from it? What was the unholiness of it that was worth spending time there so that we can acquire that characteristic for holiness? It was the fear of royalty. the fear of authority. No place in the world was it as strong as in Russia. The czars. Other countries had kings. It was a joke. It was a formality. In Russia, it was awesome, and it was fanatical. It's like, ooh, the czar, wow, he is fearsome. Well, not only him, his wife, not only the family, every minister, not just the ministers, every soldier, and not just every policeman, anybody with a shiny button. Not only that, their dogs, the government dogs. It was fanatical. There was no end. There was no rhyme or reason. It was everywhere and everything. And the Jews of Russia acquired the fear of God that was absolutely fanatical. Wild horses couldn't get them to sin. Because the fear of God extended to everything. No, I don't work on Shabbos. No, I don't eat non-kosher food. No, I will not stop teaching my kids Aleph Beis. In fact, I will compromise on nothing, not even a custom. Fanatical. So here's what happened. Jews came away with a wealth of God-fearing awe, and Russia didn't have it anymore.
Ваши голоса звучат ясно и бескомпромиссно. Наша гражданская...
Sorry, Rabbi Friedman. The program has its own mind. This is fantastic. I'm not interrupting this for anything, though. We'll go into the next hour. We'll do whatever we have to because this is
over time. Oh, okay.
It's okay. It's okay, Rabbi Friedman. You are never over time. Everybody else can be over time, not you. But this is amazing. I mean, what you're saying. We're not going to stop here. I hope next week we'll pick this up as well. I'm not finishing right now. I'm just saying because it's interesting what you're saying that Jews acquired this fanaticism towards Judaism due to Russian royalty, but then again, why everything has changed to the other side during communism. I would really, really like next week to understand why communism was able to break this kind of stiff neck Russian Jewish Russian spirit.
Oh, communism was actually a continuation. It was just another ruthless regime. It just didn't have the trappings of royalty with the crowns and with the robes and palaces, but it was the same thing. It was over the top fanatical intimidation and fear. So now that the Jews acquired it, the Soviet Union fell apart. This is called fixing the world. Take what the unholiness has, bring it into holiness, so you have elevated what is good, and you have drained the fanaticism out of what is evil. Now, what about America? Which is the chapter we're in today. What was the fanaticism of America? It's global thinking. We are the center of the universe. We are responsible for the whole world. We will help anybody. We will support anybody who wants freedom, and we will give money, and we will give, because we think of the world. Jews desperately needed to acquire that ability because we are responsible for the world. For real. But living in ghettos and in shtetls and in cellars and basements for 2,000 years kind of discouraged that kind of thinking. So we needed to get it back. So we ended up in America. And with the Rebbe's help, we achieved this global, cosmic, cosmopolitan thinking. We are responsible for the world. We have to change the world, educate the world, inspire the world. The whole world is our responsibility. We got it. Now America is losing it. Do you see what's happening?
Amazing.
Let's just take care of America. We don't want to be responsible for the whole world. It's not our business. It's not our job. Right? So now it's not democracy that has to spread all over the world. It's Torah.
Amen.
And that we have to do fanatically.
Well, I hope
with no limits.
I hope we're up to it. I really do. Rabbi Friedman, unfortunately, very, very unfortunately, yes, the time is up. But this is a huge topic, and hopefully maybe we'll pick it up if nothing else comes our way. We'll pick it up next week and maybe go a little bit deeper into the entire concept of everything we spoke about today. What an amazing
and next week it'll be even more true.
Well, hope we're getting closer to the truth with every second, not just every day. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Rabbi Friedman.